Hello, I am Centimus Prime, and for this video, let's go ahead and do something a little bit more interesting. So, so for this video, let's actually do a sort of double review kind of thing. So, what I have in front of me is two dinosaur sets, basically. One of which being the LEGO Creator 3-in-1 set number 31058, Mighty Dinosaurs, and the other being a slightly more modernized take on it. Sorry about that. That of which being the LEGO Creator 3-in-1 set number 31379 Fierce Dinosaur. So let's go ahead and start this review, shall we? Let's go ahead and start with the older of the two, that being the green one here, the Mighty Dinosaur. The Mighty Dinosaur. Let's set you off to the side for a little bit for now. So, what we have here is a green dinosaur. What kind of dinosaur is he? He looks kind of like he looks like a simple. To me, he kind of looks like a simple idea, a basic idea of what a T-Rex would look like. You know, large head, long tail, uh, large legs, tiny arms. You know, that kind of thing. Don't really think it's really based off of really it's like this. It's a nice sort of simplified design. Let's go ahead and try to focus that up a little bit. There we go. Here's what this fierce dinosaur looks like. So as we see here, it's got a starting off, it's got a nice design. Do like it. He's got a torso built. It's got like a torso. There's like a basic look at the torso, kind of. It's a more simplified take. It's a more simplified It's a nice simple torso build. It's totally fine. The tail is nice. It's got a decent range of posability. No, we'll start on the posability. You got a ball joint here, and you have a piece here that does keep it from going all the way down, but if say this joint loosens over time, then it shouldn't really have an issue at least holding holding up somewhat. And it can move and aside from the piece being in the way, it can move around a good bit. Got a ball joint here and a small hinge that can move the end of the tail up and down. The legs, you got a ball joint here, works well enough, and a ball joint down here that can tilt side to side a little bit, but mostly just do a little bit of up and down motion, as well as the middle of the toes being able to hinge up and down a little bit. Articulation for the arms, you got a ball joint that you can move it around a good bit with the mix of ball joints, and a hinge that can move back and forth a good ways for the claw portion of the little arms. The head, you've got the base of the neck, which has a ratcheting joint, which has 1, 2, 3, one, two, yeah, like four positions of movement here. It does have a decent. The neck does have a decent range of up and down, but it's 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 fine. Like it does like kind of break up the sculpt a little bit if you do use it a little too much, but it it works fine. It has a good range of motion, and it's overall it doesn't look terrible. And the head has a ball joint at the neck, at the base of the head. It can move around a good bit. That's nice. And the jaw can open up to about 90 degrees. In terms of how simplified the build is, you got the torso, which is a more simple build. The arms are really simple, like not a whole lot going on there. The legs are simple enough. Though I do like how the claw, I do like how the feet came together. Got some interesting building stuff happening, interesting design happening down there. The, the legs are simple enough; they work just fine. The tail works just fine. I do like how the head is built for this T-Rex mode. The eyes are nice. I believe it does have a little bit of light, but yeah, like you can shine a little bit of light through to make it look like the eyes are glowing. I do like that. That's very nice. And a pretty nifty color scheme. And something fascinating about this set right here is that this set has a couple different variants in colors because there are like different regions that had like different variants of this set being released in different colors. One of which being released in like a dark blue and a bright yellow color scheme, and the other being like in like a darker brown color scheme. So yeah, like you can get this like three. This, however, is like the most common variant of this, the most like international one, the most like likely you can find. The like green, dark green, and a tan underside. Looks, and to be real with you, it is not a terrible color scheme. It looks fine, like for a prehistoric creature. So colors are fairly nice for this common variant. And another thing about variants, something I had realized is that what I'm holding here is a slightly more modernized variant of this set that have that has like changed up a couple things. Most most notably, uh, like older variants of the set would have this piece right here. Like it's basically the same part. It's functionally the same part, but the main difference here is how the socket is designed. So here, the older variants of the set would come with a socket joint like this, where it has a more CCBS style socket there. Whereas the more modern take has the more modern like socket joint that they've made. Another notable difference is that they ended up removing these pieces because the older variant would have a pair of these to go on the hips. And basically, to give you an idea of what that looks like, here's what that looks like there. It does add a little bit of height, but it's also there to add a little bit more friction to the hips because these are known as friction adders. They have, and there it does like add a little bit more gray to the hips, but it does make things a little bit more posable. So there is that at least. Very nice. But something I've also found out is that when removing these pieces, but they didn't change the part number, and I found out why. Because when they redesigned the set to include to remove socket these pieces, they ended up removing two parts from the set. So in order to keep the so in order to keep the same amount of pieces for the set, they ended up adding pieces to the included rib cage. Because on the box you see that the included rib cage side build would come with 3 long ribs and 2 short ribs. Whereas here they ended up adding an extra short rib and therefore adding 2 extra pieces in the base of the rib and like the claw portion, the talon portion. So that's where like the pieces, the parts count went, basically. So there we go. And basically that is kind of it. Like it's not that complicated. It's one of those. It's one of those like it just like simply works kind of sets. It's a nice simple set and it works. So I do appreciate that. Now, let's get a little more modern, why not? So here we have the fierce dinosaur. So what we have here is here's like the primary build for this, because yes, for this first round, and yes I'm doing multiple videos for this because it's because of both 3-in-1s. This is the round 1 of which including both their primary builds. Here's the primary build for the more modern one, in this case being a more raptor kind of design. That being obviously the case especially when looking at the arms as well as the feet, with the talon toes that point upward an extra amount. Obviously, being more of a raptor kind of design. But despite that, it is built. It does share a lot of the building tricks that the mighty dinosaur does have, like you do have aside from the talon, aside from how they integrated the claws, the leg build is functionally the same, even down to using the same joints, using the same ball and socket joints here. So you do have that. They're just like more pieces added to it. It's slightly more articulation in the feet and the toes, as well as like tiled up a bit to cover up some of the studs. The tail is also very similar to the tail that the other set has. However, the only real significant difference here is that the end of the tail, while also having a hinge that goes up and down, it also is using one of these very nice, useful pieces. And here's the reason why this piece is so nice and useful. It can also allow the end of the tail to move left and right to allow more posability options, which is very nice. I like that. I can appreciate that. The torso is uh, again functionally the same thing, but this time being significantly larger. Like it is definitely a two studs. It's definitely two studs longer at the very. It's two studs longer. I'm sure it's a little bit thicker too. I think. Like let me. Yeah, it is a. It's basically just a slightly larger. It's basically a slightly larger version of what this torso is. But the only major difference is they added a little bit more bulk to the sides, so so that when the legs are in, it looks more natural. It looks they made the legs look slightly more tucked in, more like organic looking sort of, which is neat. Do like that. The All right, let's talk about posability then. Posability for the tail is pretty much the same aside from the fact that they added a left and right hinge here. Legs, pretty much the same up here and down at the ankle, but not only can obviously hinge up and down, but the toes can splay out a bit using another really cool modern piece. So you have a little bit more posability down there. The arms, while also having a mixed ball joint here that, by the way, has way more range of movement due to due to how it's built, because this one had a little bit more range due to the how it's built up here. This one has a lot more range. Not only that, having more joints is nice too, because it has a hinge joint that functionally works as an elbow, so it can move up and down. Now, because of how it's built, this hinge can't move down past 90 degrees. But it's honestly fine. You do have a hinge here that moves this claw hand up and down, back and forth, as well as each of these claws being individually articulated. So yeah, significantly more articulation in the arms, because these are larger arms with more joints. Then for the neck is kind of interesting. I see what they were going for with the neck, because the neck for the Mighty Dinosaur had a sort of gap whenever you used the neck articulation. They ended up building up in a way that fills in that gap and makes it look more natural. However, when you use it, that immediately goes away. That immediately goes away. Because when you start using that immediately just breaks this up even further than that. Not only that, but because of how it was built up here, but because of how it was built up here, but because of how, yeah, it's like more so because of how this is angled, it's angled. This is angled in a way that it can't go down more than this, which means that the dinosaur head can't, the raptor head can't look down past that, which means it can't look down at all. Whereas on the mighty dinosaur, it can still look down a good amount too. So articulation wise, so so in other words, mighty dinosaur has better neck articulation basically. And then as for the head, you got a ball joint here. Can basically do a lot of the same articulation as the other head, as well as the jaw that basically opens up to 90 degrees, just like the mighty dinosaur. So alright. So articulation is on this guy, on the fierce dinosaur, is overall uh, an improvement over the is overall an improvement over the fierce mighty dinosaur, with the exception of the neck. I feel like the neck in the mighty dinosaur is better than what they came up here. I get what they were going for. I do get what they were going for, but I feel like they could have built the neck a little bit better. But overall, it's still like really nice and significantly more articulated. Next up is like complexity of the build. This build is a bit more complex, likely because it's using a significant amount more pieces. Like it uses like almost twice the amount of pieces as this set does. Like not through this, but not just through this, but through like the side build as well. So you have like a lot of the same stuff, just slightly more tiled up, slightly more articulated, slightly more complex, and especially more complex in the case of the head, because the head uses so many small pieces to make up the head, whereas the other head just still uses a bit more like small pieces, but most often, but also uses a lot of slightly larger pieces to make up the general shape of the head. In this case, you have a lot more smaller pieces going on here, as well as an eye assembly here that does allow for nice light piping. Does allow for It does allow for good light piping too. And yes, it does look fascinating how they would like utilize that, but I'm not entirely sure how accurate this is. But like the head just looks slightly bulkier to me than I would like it to be, I guess. Like it still looks fine, but if I compare these two heads, I kind of like the look. I kind of like the look of the mighty dinosaur head a little bit better. And, but that's more of a my opinion kind of thing. This one still doesn't look bad, and I do like the layout of the teeth here too. The the layout of the teeth is honestly not as good in the mighty dinosaur. So the teeth is another point where this set is slightly more improved. Like just because it has more teeth and it has like a nice layout, a slightly nicer layout of teeth. The color scheme is interesting too. Not saying it's any better or worse than the color scheme of this dinosaur. I just find it quite fascinating. I guess it's a nice, more like fiery kind of color scheme where it uses reds, dark reds, the bright yellow. It uses the bright yellow as well as this relatively new neon orange color, more neon orange color. which uses more just like uses this orangey cut, like darker, like neon orangey kind of color, I guess. Solid orange, I guess. Anyway, it's an interesting sort of fiery kind of color scheme, so that's neat. I find that quite fascinating. And then moving on to side builds, I've already talked. Come on, I'm trying to make. I'm making. Trying. I'm talking good things about you. Just please stand up. They're both fine standing up. It's just that sometimes either one could just not work depending on what pose you have them in. So for side builds, I've already talked about uh, this one side build, which is basically just this. It's just a rib cage kind of thing, and I do understand why they include this, so they would be able to include some of the pieces that they would like to use for the other builds for the set. So you have this simple sort of rib cage thing. You can like hold it in like his mouth or something. It's fine. It's a fine thing to. It's an okay thing to include. The fierce dinosaur includes a slightly more significant kind of side build, where you also have a sort of ribcage thing going on here, but you also have a skull. You also have a fossil skull to go with that set of ribs, as well as a little bit, as well as a sort of dinosaur nest with a couple of eggs in there, as well as a little bit of greenery as well, a little bit of plant life in there as well, and also like includes like some joints and stuff to put in like to to create interesting angles with it. It is a it is a significantly more substantial kind of side build, which makes sense because the set is using a significant amount more pieces. But let's yeah, like it uses more pieces like because it is slightly more expensive retail wise because like it's not terribly expensive to be honest with you. They're both they're both uh they're both pretty good for their price to part ratios of according to their like retail kind of prices because the green dinosaur, the mighty dinosaur, uh, retailed at like $15 or $16. Uh, I believe originally retailed at $15, and I believe the newer variant with the modern joints and stuff is retailed for like $16, and they like bumped it up for $16, which is still fine for its price part ratio of 174 pieces, whereas Fierce Dinosaur includes 283 pieces, so yeah, like significantly more than Mighty Dinosaur, but it's also a bit more expensive because this set is retailed for $20. So that is a interesting sort of kind of thing. Uh, and that's like basically it, sort of thing. Like that's like a kind of that's like a fascinating sort of thing to compare. Now, here we go. We have both kind of like and yeah, like in terms of size, you get this one's a tad bit larger, whereas this one's slightly smaller. But you can make it slightly taller if you have the friction adders. but we're comparing the modern variants of these two. And yeah, like they're both fine. I will say, for this first round, they're like I do like both of them, but on I will say like I will say that like the I will say that the this one I will say that the Fierce Dinosaur is a bit more modern, has more pieces, has a more has like more complexity to it, has like more like builds building stuff to it. But there is just a nice like sort of charm with the Mighty Dinosaur that a lot of people like, including me. So I like, to be real, I do like both of these sets. They're both rather nice. So that includes round one of this three-parter. Uh, I honestly like can't really decide which one I like better here, so I'll let you decide. So if you want, you can put a comment down on which one of these sets you prefer. And with that, I think that'll be it for this first round. If you enjoyed this double review, consider to like and subscribe and maybe even comment if you want. And of course, I will be posting again sooner or later.